Hi, everybody. We are going to talk today about why you might be feeling stuck in your healing journey. I am going to try to title this. Give me just a second, but I am not sure if I can do it after the fact. So, hello, welcome. We are going to talk about why you might be feeling stuck in your healing journey. So go ahead and say hi if you are just joining. My name is Cassandra Solano. I am a clinician of 17 years. I am a life and relationship coach. I'm a therapist by trade, and I am excited to talk to y'all who might be feeling stuck in your healing journey. If you can drop a heart or let me know if you can hear me okay with my little headphones, that would be super. Otherwise, I'm going to assume that we are all good. Okay, so what's really important, the first thing I want to talk about is something called self-sabotage. If you are trying to make positive change in your life and you feel like it's every time you take a step forward, you take one or two steps back, you might describe yourself as somebody who self-sabotages. And I want to talk to you today why self-sabotage is actually self-protection, and that is really kind of the underlying mechanism or process to why you might be feeling stuck in your healing journey. So if you are on like therapist TikTok or have been reading posts here on Facebook and have gotten a lot of understanding and knowledge about, maybe why what you went through when you were a kid is affected your nervous system, affected your attachment style, etc. But despite having all of this head knowledge, you might still struggle with implementation. It's because you have this brain that is doing what it thinks it needs to do to keep you safe. And our brain or our nervous system's default setting is same is safe and different is dangerous. Same is safe even when same sucks, even when same results in like self-sabotaging, even when same results in you continuing to repeat patterns and cycles in relationships. So our brain is telling us, hey, you need to keep doing the same thing that has always kept you safe. So our brain is number one job is to keep us alive. Our brain is not really caring too much that you're living your best life or that you're growing spiritually or that you're creating amazing aligned relationships or living your purpose. Your brain's MO is, but did you die? And is this risk or is this expansion or growth or trying something new potentially going to lead to pain, emotional pain, physical pain. And if your brain is perceiving expansion, growth, trying something new, could potentially lead to rejection or failure, it not working out, which is a part of like growing in our lives. It's part of expansion in our lives is that we have to take risks. Then your brain wants to resist that change. So hi, welcome if you're just joining. We're talking today about why you might be feeling stuck in your healing journey. So our brain or our nervous system's default setting is same is safe, different is dangerous, especially when we are dysregulated and when we're activated. And we might be already knowing with a lot of head knowledge what we should be doing, but in the moment have difficulty doing it, setting boundaries, picking a new kind of person today or seeing red and green flags. Maybe you're trying to start a new habit or a new routine. And if you do not have enough safety in yourself and enough perceived safety in your environment, your brain is going to do its number one job, which is to keep you alive. Again, your brain its motto is same is safe, different is dangerous. if it hasn't killed you, let's keep doing it. It's kept you alive this long. Even if it means a certain type of unhealthy relationship pattern, even if it means a certain habit that's not serving you, even if it means a certain way of communicating or people pleasing that's no longer serving you. Your brain is like, okay, yeah, but you haven't died yet, so why do we need to stop doing this? But your higher self knows, I need to let go of the people pleasing. I need to communicate better. I need to set boundaries. I need to stick to this new habit or this new routine so I can really thrive in life. So when people come to work with me, they often share that they feel like there's two parts of them that are at war. And if you ever watched an old cartoon, maybe you're familiar with this image of a little angel on one shoulder and a little devil on the other shoulder. Or it's like, different voices in their head in conflict. And one is like, you're supposed to be setting those boundaries like you read in that book. You're supposed to be, asserting yourself, like that one Instagram post that you saved that said, like, this is how to assert yourself. You're supposed to be, regulating and getting grounded when you feel activated. But in the moment, it can feel really impossible, even inaccessible to remember to do those new things. And that's because when we're dysregulated, when we're in a fight, flight, a freeze, or a shutdown response, our brain goes to survival mode. And again, same as safe. And so it wants to go back to those same old patterns and routines or habits or ways of communicating that you always have, because it's worked up to this point, like to keep you alive. Maybe it hasn't served to keep you happy, but it hasn't killed you yet. Someone says, I feel my flight and fawn modes are in constant conflict. As a result, I shut down and go into freeze. Yeah, because we can only stay in that activated energy for so long. And then our nervous system comes to a point where it's like, okay, we can't escape this. We can't fight our way out of this or fawn or people please our way out of this. So we're just going to go into like a freeze or a shutdown because the odds feel so overwhelming and we don't think we're going to get out. It's like the deer that freezes in headlights. And the deer does that because it feels so overwhelmed in that moment of seeing the car's headlights. It just goes into a freeze response because it doesn't think that it's going, that it's like an escapable situation, that it's a survivable situation. And when we feel like something is inescapable, unsurvivable, that it's perpetual and it's just never going to end, our bodies do this really brilliant thing where it's like, I'm going to stop spending energy on fighting or fawning, and we're just going to go into a shutdown response. So what we want to do when we notice we're feeling activated, like into a fight response, is to like do things to work that energy out of our body. We can shake, we can punch, we can do squats or push-ups or wall push-ups. Of course, like ask your provider before you start any exercise routine. We can stand up on our toes and like drop down on our heels a couple of times. To help us kind of discharge some of that charged energy. And is losing your voice in social situations a sign of feeling stuck? Yeah. So Bessel van der Kolk, in his book, The Body Keeps the Score, he talks about this when we go into our parasympathetic or a shutdown response. Our brain does this really brilliant thing of actually constricting our vocal cords. So I have had clients who, like in dating, feel like they're on a date and then they like freeze up and they don't know what to say, or they're trying to work out an issue with their partner, with their loved one, but then things get intense and then all of a sudden they just freeze up and they don't really speak their truth. I used to do this with past bosses. I would go in like, I'm going to talk to my boss about this thing and like, pump myself up, and then I'd get in there and I would just freeze up and feel like I could not speak. And I was just like, okay, yep, like, and agree to some stuff I didn't even really want to agree to. And the reason why our brains do this, if you imagine that, for most of human existence, right, and our brains are still wired for like pre-industrial times, our brains and our nervous systems have not developed fast enough or at the pace of industrialization where, we're not living out in nature like we used to. And if you are out in nature, let's say you're out hunting and gathering, you are your ancestor 1,000 years ago, and a tiger or some other predator comes, your body is going to want to freeze and crouch down and not make any noise. And the reason why your body wants to do this is to keep you safe. So your brain literally constricts or restricts your vocal cords when it senses that you are in an intense threatening situation, and it's trying to help you not make any noise so that tiger can't find you, so that predator can't find you and get you. But now it's like, I'm at a party, or I'm on a date, or I am trying to talk to my boss about something, and I just tighten up and lose my voice. So that is absolutely part of that freeze or shutdown response. Okay. So just to recap, because a couple new people joined, hello and welcome. Your brain's default setting is same is safe, different is dangerous. When we are activated into a fight, flight, freeze, fawn, shutdown response, that is the default setting that's going to take over. And that's why it is so hard, even if you know what you're supposed to be doing, to actually implement it. So I want to give you a couple of strategies to start if you are in this space of feeling this inner conflict between what you want to do or how you want to show up or how you're trying to communicate in a new pattern, but you keep feeling like you're kind of collapsing in the moment and going back to the old pattern. So the very first thing is that to build this awareness. So if you already have this awareness, congratulations, that's huge. And if for me, sometimes it wouldn't happen till like an hour later, or I would get home from work where I realized what I had done. I had realized, oh man, I went in meeting to talk to my boss and be assertive about something, and then I ended up totally shutting down and not even saying what I really wanted to say and agreeing to some bullshit I didn't even agree with, and just beating up on myself about it. So whether you are realizing that you're doing it in the moment, or maybe like myself, who tends to go into disassociation more when I'm activated, that you realize it an hour later or a day later, like, dang, why didn't I say that? Or why did I say that? The very first thing is to extend a big heaping dose of self-compassion towards yourself, because beating up on ourselves or talking down to ourselves or telling ourselves, oh, I thought I was more healed than this, or I should have done this, or I shouldn't have done that, that actually just continues to make it hard to change. It makes it hard for us to move into regulation where we can actually create new patterns and get unstuck when we're beating up on ourselves. So that is like the very first thing, regardless of, again, if you're recognizing it in the moment or at a later time that you have done some old behavior or reacted in a way that you don't feel proud of, is to give yourself a break and even celebrate, or just see if you can just acknowledge the growth in being able to recognize that you have, people pleased again, or that you have let somebody cross a boundary with you again. Even you just recognizing that you want to change something is a huge win in self-awareness, and I want to celebrate that. The second thing that I would recommend after you move into a place of like not beating up on yourself or talking shit to yourself about yourself and moving into self-compassion, or at least a place of neutrality of like, okay, fuck, that happened. Like, what can I do now about it? Right? Is to recognize and even acknowledge that pattern in that behavior. So if, for example, like my example I'm sharing, I go into my boss's office because I'm going to talk about something, and then I end up not bringing it up, and just people pleasing, and I don't even bring up the thing I wanted to talk about, and then I walk out, and later that day I realized, man, I did it again. I went into my boss's office to talk to them about something, and I totally like blanked out on it, or I totally froze up and like my throat, and I couldn't communicate it. I'm not going to beat up on myself about it. And then the second step is to actually acknowledge or even move into some gratitude for that trauma response. Because what that was is a survival mechanism that helped me stay safe a lot of my life. Not speaking up, being agreeable and being a good girl, and shoving down my truth helped me to have love and acceptance and belonging and to be seen in my family of origin. And I learned that at a very, very, very young age. And so the second step is, after we stop beating up on ourselves, is to say, okay, wow, actually, can I have some gratitude or just acknowledge that this is a protective strategy of my nervous system that has kept me safe for so long. And just look at the behavior outside of you. You are not a people pleaser. You have people pleasing patterns as a trauma response. You have people pleasing patterns as a consequence of that being reinforced by your family, by society, for you to be loved and accepted. But you are not a people pleaser. You are so much more than that. Okay, so it's like, okay, I did that people pleasing thing again. I'm not beating up on myself. I even acknowledge and thank that part of me that thinks that it needed to do that to stay safe with my boss, because I had to do that to stay safe or be loved and accepted in my family of origin growing up. And you can fill in the blank of people pleasing, of whatever other pattern or behavior that you are feeling stuck in trying to change. And seeing if we can actually learn to start partnering with these protective parts of us, partnering with our old patterns that we might feel shameful about, that we might judge ourselves for, that we might feel embarrassed if other people knew that we did this. Once we are able to witness and see these things as protective, my people-pleasing part has been something that protected me and kept me safe growing up. And when I get really stressed or overwhelmed, sometimes it still kicks in, and that's okay. I'm working on it. And I'm acknowledging that that was something that kept me safe for a long time. And the more that we can cultivate safety, again, within ourselves and our perceived sense of safety, the more that we and part of creating safety is also creating safe relationships. So this is where co-regulation or safe connection with other regulated people, like a therapist, like a coach, comes in. The more that we cultivate inner safety and safety in our lives and safe relationships, over time, the brain is going to start to go, maybe different isn't so dangerous. Maybe we don't have to cling so tightly to this old behavior, to this old pattern, to be safe and to be loved. And we can start taking small actions to show our nervous system and to show our brain that doing the new behavior isn't going to kill us. It isn't going to result in pain or shame or rejection or whatever you experienced for letting that part of you show when you were a kid, or maybe in past relationships. So for me, in this example with the boss, was, okay, I'm going to, in an attempt to not collapse and to shut down and fawn, I am going to go in with a list, with a post-it. And this is something that my clients who tend to collapse into a fawning response, or my clients that even have a hard time with not losing their voice when they're trying to communicate, I tell them, write a note on your phone app, or take a Post-it with some bullet points. And that's what I would do. I started walking into my boss's office with my little Post-it with like my 2 to 3 bullet points. Keep it short when you're first starting this, so I could make sure that I brought up those things that I wanted to talk about, instead of collapsing into a fawning response and people pleasing and not saying anything. I even did this, like, I think I went to the doctor on the 1st of this month. And I don't know about y'all, I talked to a client about it this week too, but I can go to the doctor and I forget like half the stuff I need to talk to my doctor about, because for some of us, going to the doctor is activating. So I wrote a list of all of the things I wanted to mention on my notes app, and I made sure I had that out and open before my doctor even walked into the room. And I noticed myself wanting to like collapse and fawn a couple times, like thinking, oh, you have to ask about something else. Oh, you wanted to bring up this thing. Oh, you wanted to bring up that thing. And I was like, I have one more thing. Excuse me, I have one more thing. And I noticed there was a part of me that felt like you're bugging them. You're taking too much time. You already asked them about 3 things. You're going to ask them about 3 more things. Like, and I just let that protective part know, like, it's okay. I've got this. Us taking up space and advocating for our needs in this doctor's appointment, and using my notes app on my phone as like an anchoring tool, and my deep breaths help me to show my nervous system that it's okay for me to ask for what I want and need. And that is not something that was acceptable or encouraged growing up. It's like, have no needs, just be quiet, be good, right? And if there's anyone out here who maybe was like a very mature child that like didn't have any needs and was like a little adult, and like you were also probably emotionally neglected as well. So those are my steps to start if you're feeling stuck. I'm just going to repeat them one more time, and I will be posting this replay. So the first one is that whenever it is that you notice that you, while it's in the middle of doing it, or maybe it's an hour or a day later that you've noticed that you've kind of gone back or relapsed into some old behavior or old pattern. You know, the example I gave was people pleasing. The first thing is to release beating up on yourself and to bring in self-compassion, because beating up on ourselves does not move us to regulation. And then the second thing is to acknowledge that that old pattern or behavior is something that helped you to stay safe, or to be loved, to be accepted, to feel like you belonged at some point in your past, probably in your childhood or family of origin. And just acknowledge that that behavior, doing a people-pleasing behavior, doesn't mean you are a people pleaser. You are so much more than that. It's just a part of you. It's just one survival strategy or survival pattern that your nervous system picked up along the way, and that you can acknowledge and even thank that part for trying to keep you safe, and let that part know, like, hey, but my resourced adult self is here and can handle it. And then we want to take the final step of putting it into action. And that can be using tools, like things that we can hold, that we can touch, a little Post-it note list or something written out on our phone that we can take to help us anchor as we stretch and try to implement the new behavior. In my example, it was standing up for myself with my boss or at my doctor's office, instead of people pleasing and fawning and collapsing, and because I'm like scared to take up space and assert my needs. Thank you so much. I am Tara Alexandria, who's also an incredible spiritual intuitive energy healer. Check them out. It says you make this stuff so easy and accessible to apply. I hope so. I sincerely hope so. All right, everybody. Well, I hope this was useful. I am going to be reposting this shortly. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, or DM me after I get off this live. I'm going to be hanging out on Instagram for a little while after I get off this live. If you want to send me a DM or a voice message, I am happy to answer any questions if maybe you didn't want to drop them here in the chat. And of course, this does not substitute for therapy or therapeutic advice. I can only give kind of general answers for situations. All right, y'all. I am accepting new one-on-one clients to start in August. You can head to the link in my bio if you are interested in working with me and in breaking free from patterns that are keeping you stuck. Okay. I am sending y'all so much love. Thanks for hanging out today. You are so welcome. And we'll talk soon. Bye.